Hey everyone, and welcome to your deep dive. You sent us some pretty wild stuff about the Bilderberg Group.
Yeah, YouTube video, right.
Right, titled Bilderberg Group's Dark Secrets. Anneke Lucas reveals billionaires in sex trafficking network.
From Valuetainment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, let's dive in, shall we?
Sounds good. This video features Anneke Lucas.
Okay.
And she makes, well, some pretty startling claims.
Such as?
She says she's a survivor of an elite sex trafficking ring.
Bro.
And she ties it directly to the Bilderberg Group.
The Bilderberg Group. Now, for people who might not know.
Sure, it's this annual private conference, super secretive, brings together, I don't know, 120, 150 of the most powerful people in the world.
Politicians.
Politicians, yeah, experts from industry, finance, academics, media, the whole 9 yards.
And they've been meeting.
Since 54.
54, wow. So like a breeding ground for conspiracy theories, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, a secrecy alone, it's like people think they're puppet masters, controlling global events, that kind of thing.
Right, right. So where does Anneke Lucas come into all of this?
Well, Lucas claims she was trafficked starting at 6 years old.
6.
6, horrific abuse.
Right.
Then, by 9, she says she was already in mind control training.
9 years old?
Intense. And she links all of this, the trafficking, the abuse, the mind control, directly to the Bilderberg Group.
That's a hefty accusation. So what exactly, I mean, her story, it's harrowing. It's like powerful people operating above the law, like something out of a movie.
She claims she was at the 1972 Bilderberg meeting.
72. Where was it?
In Belgium. She says she was there with a billionaire.
Okay.
Who was basically procuring her for another attendee, an American, even more powerful, supposedly.
Does she say who?
Not at this point in the story.
So just this image of this young girl surrounded by these shadowy figures, it's chilling. It really makes you wonder who these people were.
Later, she names David Rockefeller.
David Rockefeller.
Yeah.
Like the Rockefeller.
Wow. Okay. So she's saying he was the American at the 72 meeting. That's her claim. She says she only connected him to it, though, after his death in 2017.
Huh. That's interesting. I mean, it makes you think. About, speaking out against someone that powerful. So what did she say about her interactions with him, with Rockefeller?
She talks about spending time at his estates, on his yacht, that sort of thing.
Living the high life.
While
being trafficked, yeah. It's a disturbing contrast.
It is.
He also says she was presented to a Rothschild.
Rothschild, like the Rothschild.
One of them, yeah.
Whoa, this story just keeps getting wilder. So what was the point of that, supposedly?
Lucas claims this Rothschild needed to approve the plan.
What plan?
To turn her into what she calls a high-class sex slave used for spying.
Spying.
Yeah.
So this is getting into some serious conspiracy territory.
It is. It takes it from a personal story to something much bigger, much darker. This idea of vulnerable people being exploited, for the powerful's gain.
It's like a hidden world, right? Operating beneath the surface where the rules are different. Exactly. And that's where her story gets even darker, I guess.
Oh, so
She talks about being a special project, Rockefeller's project.
So on the one hand, horrific abuse, but then special treatment.
Yeah. It's twisted, like dog grooming.
What kind of special treatment?
Training, sex training, manipulation tactics to please powerful men.
It's just horrific. Think of a young girl being molded like that. So what happened then?
She says about a year after, she resisted the Rothschilds.
Resisted.
She doesn't really go into detail, just that she resisted them, which makes you wonder, right? What were the consequences? What kind of power did they have over her?
Right. It adds that weight to their alleged involvement.
Yeah.
So she resisted the Rothschilds, and then what?
Then she goes into detail about her mind control training, and this is where it gets really disturbing.
Oh, boy. Mind control, that's a whole other can of worms. Always fascinated and terrified me. So what does she say happened?
She talks about this guy, Hans Harmsen, in Heidelberg, Germany.
Heidelberg, Germany. We've gone from yachts and estates to Germany.
Yeah. And she describes torture, basically.
What kind of torture?
She talks about a specific technique, strangulation, meant to heighten her intuition, create these mental associations.
Strangulation, that's not brutal. I mean, just the trauma associated with that.
That's intense. And this is just one piece of the puzzle, remember?
Right. And she's still affected by this, I imagine.
Oh, yeah. She talks about seeing a photograph of Harmsen years later and being triggered.
Wow. That's powerful. So how does this all connect back to Rockefeller to the Bilderberg group.
She connects Rockefeller and Harms's through their beliefs.
Eugenics.
Eugenic, like the idea of breeding a better human race. That whole
That's the one. Really disturbing stuff.
Yeah, super dark. So what's the connection with Harms and what did he have to do with eugenics?
She claims he was a Nazi bureaucrat involved in forced sterilization programs.
Forced sterilizations. That's horrific. Connecting her story to wow. Systematic oppression, human rights violations. It really makes you think about, how these ideologies can persist. Exactly. I mean, Lucas's story, whether it's entirely accurate or not, it's a reminder about unchecked power, especially when it's combined with these dehumanizing ideologies.
It makes you wonder about the lasting impact of these historical events, And if similar patterns are emerging today,
Yeah.
just in different forms, it's sobering.
Absolutely. Understanding history it's not just about the past, it's about understanding the present and preventing, similar things from happening again.
So what can we do? As individuals, I mean.
Yeah.
It feels overwhelming, right? Abuse, power structures, eugenics. Where do we even begin?
Awareness. It starts there. Understanding the context, recognizing the warning signs of abuse, manipulation.
Right. Knowledge is power. The more we learn, the better equipped we are to see it, to challenge it. It also makes me think about critical thinking. We can't just blindly accept information, right?
Exactly. We need to evaluate, discern fact from fiction, consider different perspectives.
Be informed consumers of information. Aware of biases, question our sources, think about the motivations behind the information.
Precisely. And that's not just for this case, right? It's for everything, especially in the digital age. Misinformation spreads so fast.
It's like we need an internal .bs detector,
Huh. I like that. Becoming more discerning, more critical.
So how do we apply that to Lucas's story? It's not detailed, it's emotional, but it's a single source.
That's a really important point. We're hearing one side. It's compelling, but it's not proof.
So how do we balance empathy with skepticism? Believing someone's lived experience, but also acknowledging the potential for inaccuracies.
It's tricky. There's no easy answer. But open mind, recognizing limitations.
So we're not saying she's lying.
No. Just emphasizing further investigation, corroborating evidence, other perspectives.
Like a puzzle with missing pieces. We have her account, but we need to see what else fits.
Exactly. And that's the challenge, separating fact from fiction, evaluating credibility.
Something historians, journalists, researchers, they grapple with constantly.
Right. Doesn't mean we give up. Just means we have to be rigorous, cautious, open to other possibilities.
Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, right?
Exactly. Independent verification, other sources, other accounts.
So is there anything else out there, anything that supports her story?
That's where it gets complicated. There are other accounts of abuse, exploitation in elite circles, but nothing that directly corroborates her specific claims about Bilderberg, Rockefeller, Rothschild.
So we have this unsettling situation, compelling testimony, but lack of verification.
And that's why it's so important to avoid jumping to conclusions. It's a horrifying story, but healthy skepticism.
You're not saying we should dismiss it, right?
No. Just consider the possibility of bias, memory distortion, even fabrication.
So, complexities of memory, challenges of verifying events from so long ago.
Exactly. Nuance, sensitivity. There's a human story here.
We're respectful of her experience, but objective in our analysis.
It's a delicate balance, but an important conversation. Her story, whether true or not, it raises important questions about power, control, abuse.
Challenges us to look deeper, question the narratives.
It strikes me, Lucas's claims about being a high-class sex slave used for spying.
Right. That fits with the common narrative, right? About how these groups supposedly control people.
Blackmail. Compromise. It's a common theme.
Compromising information.
Yeah.
Leverage.
Exactly.
Chilling. So how much truth is there to that?
It's certainly possible. I mean, history's full of examples.
Honey traps, wiretaps.
And with technology, the potential for that kind of surveillance, manipulation, it's only increasing.
We need to be vigilant, protect our privacy, hold those in power accountable.
Can't assume our private lives are immune.
So how does this connect back to Lucas, to Bilderberg?
Adds another layer, right, to her allegations. If these groups are using these tactics
against her,
especially if they see her as a threat.
The manipulation, the spying.
If it's a narrative.
Disturbing picture. Power and influence above ethics. People as tools.
Raises questions about limits of power, accountability, protection.
Yeah, it's a lot to process. From a YouTube video to this. Power, abuse, truth.
The power of a story.
So, where do we go from here? How do we make sense of all this?
Acknowledge the complexity. We can't dismiss it, but we can't accept it uncritically either.
Empathy and skepticism.
Truth and dot distortion.
Somewhere in the gray area.
Ambiguity.
The truth is multifaceted.
Embrace the challenge. The pursuit of truth is a process.
The importance of evidence,
Yeah.
but also the limitations.
Question our assumptions. Consider other perspectives.
The power of stories and the potential for manipulation.
The human experience is complex. Messy.
So, what are the key takeaways?
Critical thinking. Can't accept everything at face value.
Evaluate, discern, conclude.
Be aware of manipulation. Propaganda, bias, storytelling.
Discerning, critical, independent.
The pursuit of truth is a journey.
Question. Explore, remain open.
So, with that in mind, let's look at a specific aspect of Lucas's story, the Bilderberg group.
Right. Shadowy organization, conspiracy theories.
Balanced perspective. Not a harmless social club, but not all powerful puppet masters either.
Let's look at the facts. What do we know? Why all this suspicion?
Annual private conference, influential figures,
Secrecy?
Chatham House rule. You can use the information, but no names, no affiliations.
We know who's there, but not what they talk about.
And that's what fuels the conspiracies.
Nefarious plots, behind closed doors.
Hard to refute.
So, what are the common beliefs? The conspiracy theory,
New World Order.
which is
One world government. Totalitarian regime. No more national sovereignty.
secretly controlling the world.
That's one. Manipulating global events. Financial markets.
Yeah.
Political agendas.
Anxiety about power, control, loss of autonomy.
Mistrust of authority.
So, how much truth is there to it? How powerful are they really?
They bring together powerful people. That's undeniable.
Networking, deal-making,
But how much of that translates into action? Policy.
the lack of transparency.
Breeding ground for speculation.
So where does Lucas fit in?
Her claims suggest it's not just a social club. Something more sinister.
Trafficking, mind control, moral gray area,
Human drama. Intrigue.
accountability. Who holds them responsible?
A crucial question.
So what can we do?
Awareness. Knowledge.
Demand transparency, investigative journalism, open dialogue,
Can't let them operate in the shadows.
reclaiming our power.
Collective responsibility.
So, back to Lucas's story. The mind control.
Captures the imagination. Our deepest fears.
Chilling. Broken down. Reprogrammed.
Long history of this.
Cold War experiments.
LSD, psychological manipulation.
Ethical concerns.
Consequences.
Pursuit of knowledge, leading to horrific outcomes.
Makes you wonder if it's still happening.
Valid question.
So how does Lucas's story connect to all that?
Her account aligns with some of the documented techniques,
Sensory deprivation, sleep deprivation, hypnotic suggestion.
all explored in those programs.
Chilling, even if we dismiss. Full-blown mind control.
The techniques themselves. Manipulative. Harmful.
Subtle influence.
Critical of information. Question motives.
How do we protect ourselves?
Awareness. Media literacy. Propaganda. Bias. Credibility. Persuasive techniques. Advertising. Marketing. Politics.
Critical consumers.
Question the narratives. Think for ourselves.
Discerning. Critical. Independent.
So what are the implications if it's true? What does it say about the world?
Troubling questions. Power. Abuse. Freedom.
Reality and manipulation. Blurred lines.
Vigilance. Critical thinking. Challenge the narratives.
Next step. Making sense of it all.
Acknowledge the complexity. No easy answers. Nuance.
Ambiguity. Question our assumptions. Remain open.
Continue the conversation. Explore. Accountability.
Collective responsibility.
Well said.
So let's look closer at child sex trafficking.
Horrific. Dark underbelly of power.
Slavery still exists in the shadows.
Survivors like Lucas. Courageous.
What can we learn?
Vulnerability of children.
Targeted
Promises. Threats. Manipulation.
poverty, inequality, demand,
Multi-pronged approach.
Q strategies.
Education. Dangers. Signs. Empowerment.
Parents, teachers, adults.
Law enforcement. Root causes.
Economic opportunity. Societal norms. A world where children are valued, protected.
Collective responsibility.
How does Lucas's story connect?
Insidious nature of the crime. Challenges of justice.
Impunity, wealth, power, connections,
Trafficking at all levels.
transparency, accountability, Challenge the status quo.
Silence is complicity.
Speaking out. Demanding justice.
A more just world.
So let's talk about the Rothschilds.
Famous, powerful, centuries of history, banking, finance, philanthropy, political influence,
Conspiracy theories. Pulling the strength.
critical eye, truth and exaggeration.
What do we know?
Mayor Amschel Rothschild, 18th century, German Jewish banker, financial empire.
5 sons. Strategically placed.
Frankfurt, Vienna, London, Naples, Paris.
International banking. Financing governments. Wars. Their wealth and influence grew exponentially over centuries. Major players. International finance. Shaping economies. Political influence.
Fascinating story. Complex. Admiration and suspicion.
Right. Wealth and influence. Targets for conspiracy theories.
Puppet masters. Behind the scenes.
So, Lucas's claims. How do they fit in?
The allegation about the Rothschild needing to approve. The sex slave for spying thing.
Adds fuel to the fire.
Shadowy, powerful, above the law, exploitation.
Concentration of wealth and power in the hands of a few.
Exactly.
Abuse, exploitation, vulnerability. Who else could be caught in the crosshairs?
Chilling thought, transparency, accountability, challenge the status quo.
So how do we reconcile her claims with the historical record? The Rothschilds' legacy? It's hard to separate facts from fiction.
It is. Delicate balance, empathy for Lucas, trauma, courage, but also critical thinking, bias, memory, exaggeration.
Not dismissing, not accepting uncritically, finding that middle ground. Possibility of truth, the limitations of a single source, complexities of memory, historical narratives.
Keep asking questions, seeking evidence, alternative perspectives, definitive answers, maybe not. But the pursuit of truth, it's a process.
Like a puzzle with missing pieces. We have her account, but do other pieces fit evidence? For or against? Even then, the full picture, maybe not.
Doesn't mean we give up. Rigorous analysis, cautious conclusions, open to being wrong.
So what's the takeaway for our listeners? How to make sense of it all.
Critical thinking, always. Can't just accept what we see and hear.
Evaluate, discern, multiple perspectives, our own conclusions, based on evidence.
Manipulation, propaganda, bias, storytelling.
Discerning, critical, independent thinkers. Ownership of our own minds, not passively manipulated. Knowledge, skepticism.
We have a choice. How we perceive the world, how we respond to information.
Constructive dialogue, diverse perspectives, challenge our own biases.
Pursuit of truth, a journey, curiosity, critical thinking, embrace the complexity, the ambiguity.
So wrapping up this deep dive, Bilderberg, elite power structures, Anneke Lucas's allegations. A final thought.
What if we all look deeper, question the narratives, demanded accountability?
What kind of world could we create? Critical thinking, transparency, truth, justice, something to ponder. Keep exploring, keep questioning. A world where power is used responsibly, where the marginalized are heard, are respected,